Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5 things you need to know about your avatar to write Copy Like a Pro Masterclass. This class is designed for coaches and consultants who want to connect to their ideal client in a faster, easier way so they can actually convert more sales into paying customers. So let's just kick it off. A little housekeeping notes about this masterclass. We're going to keep it to about 60 minutes, including Q&A today. So if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat, hold them to the end, and we will answer questions at the end of the presentation today, just so we have really good flow. And I want to let everybody know, because we're live streaming today, there will not be a replay for the masterclass. So grab your pen, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get moving. So for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Anza Goodbar. I am the CEO of Audientum and creator of the Six-Figure Life and Business Blueprint. I'm a serial entrepreneur with more than 12 years of experience working with business owners to help them establish and scale their online service-based businesses. I was a former mortgage broker, turned business coach, and 7 times Amazon best-selling author. I'm passionate about taking complex business ideas and breaking them down into simple, actionable steps. I'm not going to share everything about you, but I will tell you, or about me with you. But there is something very special that Audientum does that no one else is doing that I want to make sure that you know about before we move on. And that is, we create highly targeted, done for you, curated audiences. We specialize in audience analysis, audience creation, and providing granular characteristic data to bolster your messaging and marketing efforts that will result in higher conversion rates. So the biggest takeaway that I want you to walk away with today is that you're marketing to one person, not a sea of people. And as we move through the information today, I think that you're going to really understand why knowing your avatar so deeply will help you write better copy and convert more leads into paying customers. So what are we going to cover today? We are going to cover 5 things that you need to know about your avatar. First thing are her goals and values. The first step to understanding your ideal customer is to define their goals and values. These are the things that are most important to your ideal customer. And so we're going to talk about that today. The second thing that we're going to talk about are demographics and psychographics, understanding who they are as a person, like their marital status, income level, where they live, what causes matter to them, and what really is going on inside their head. That's so much more than just demographics. And so we're going to talk about that. The third point is challenges and pain points. We're going to outline their biggest problems and challenges and pain points that help hold them back. This is going to include getting in touch with key words that they use to describe themselves. The fourth thing is objections and roles. So you want to consider the role that they play as the decision maker to purchase your product or service. What would prevent them from purchasing your product or service? So we're going to talk about the role they play and the objections that they might have depending on the role that they're in. And then finally, we're going to talk about their buying motivators. We're going to pinpoint what their buying motivation is. Everyone's buying motivation comes from one of 10 motivators at least, and we're going to uncover those so you can start targeting your messaging to be in alignment with what will motivate them to say yes. So let's talk about our avatar. Her name is Rebecca, and we have a couple of different scenarios for her. And so let's just take a look at this first scenario. Who is she? Is she a 28-year-old who lives in Denver, who rents an apartment, who's divorced, has 2 children, and is currently a student? Or is she a 33-year-old woman who lives in the suburbs, who is a homeowner, married, one child, and a college grad. Let's just take a picture or a look at these two pictures and let's see what might be important to them. So on the left side of the screen, we see that Rebecca has a yoga mat. She has young children. Her son has a baseball and a baseball mitt. We see she's going to online school. We see that she lives in a metropolitan area, and we see that she has a picture of her family, including her parents, hanging on the wall. So we know that she's into health. We know that she's into personal and professional development. We know that sports plays a part in their family. It looks like she's a coffee drinker. There's a coffee maker on the shelf in her kitchen. So we know quite a bit about her and what her life potentially looks like, having two kids. One's pretty young, one's old enough to play team sports. So we can get a feel for how busy she is in her personal life. Living in a metropolitan area, maybe she doesn't own a car, maybe she relies on public transportation. And so there are things that are very important to her life to make her life work smoothly, right? So let's look at the Rebecca over on the right-hand side of the page. She's a little bit more mature. We see that she is into reading. She is a college graduate. She's proudly displaying that on her bookshelf. She has books. We know that she's a reader. We see there's a picture of her family on a boat. So we know that she likes leisure activities. We see that her husband is playing with the son in the yard. They're a pet owner. We know that he's a firefighter. They support firefighting activities. And so you can see how between each of those women that their life is a little bit different, even though they're both Rebecca. But the way that I would talk to Rebecca on the left is very different than the way I would talk to the Rebecca on the right. And so being able to really know more than just the demographics of age, marital status, income, college status is going to make a difference in the copy that you write. So let's go ahead and dig into our number one. I'm sorry, my slides are a little slow here. Our number one objective with goals and values. Oh my goodness, you guys, I'm sorry. Here we go. Goals and values. So the goals could be based on business or personal. And you want to be able to tie this into your product or service when you're looking at writing copy. The values that you assign to them should be personal, but they are going to be the driving force behind their business. So values might be something like, honesty and integrity. That's going to be really important to how she shows up in her business. And so as you're going through and you're looking at her goals and values, you want to ask yourself, am I being specific enough? Because you really want to know your avatar as well as you know your best friend or your spouse or your sister. There's somebody that you know intimately, you know the inner workings of their mind, because all of this information is going to drive the copy that you write. It's going to speak to them the way that they see themselves. So the more detailed that you can become in your messaging, the more language that you use that is their own language, the more quickly you're going to be able to build that rapport and be able to connect with them on a deeper level. So you want to make notes of their goals and values that are relevant to your product and service. How do those tie in together? Are you in alignment with who she is as a person? So understanding her goals and values are also going to help you create your products and services to help her achieve her goals. So remember that the copy that you're writing is all about her. It's not about you and what you can do for her. It's all about you helping her get to her goals, talking in her terms, attaching yourself to her values. Knowing that is going to help you really understand what's meaningful to her. So I want you to start looking, below the surface of what her goals and values are, but why are those goals and values important to her? So when you can restate her goals and values back to her through your copy, you help her feel seen, heard, and understood. And when she feels that way, she's going to begin to trust you. You're going to become an ally on her team, so to speak. So you want to design your nurture emails to be able to help her visualize the life and business that she wants that are built around these values and goals that she has. And so the more that you understand what those are, the more your stories can tie into providing the pathway forward for her to get from point A to point B. Stories are so important for her to be able to relate to you, to know that you understand her. You're not just putting words out there. You really understand where she is. You know what's making her tick. You know the motivation that is causing her to act. She wants to be in alignment with her goals and her values. She's not going to buy from you if that product or service makes her feel like she's out of alignment with who she is as a person. And so it's really important for you to be able to list out several of her goals and values so you can create better copy. So, content is designed to help you build rapport and trust with your audience. And, again, just knowing what those things are in her values is going to help you. So, let's look at demographics and psychographics. Most of the clients that I have worked with over the past 12 years have really focused in on demographics. They know who they work with. Um, Many of my clients would say something like this: I work with women between 38 and 42 who are going through a transition in their life. I work with business professionals who want to advance in their career. I work with veterinarians who deal with small pets. You know, that's all fine and dandy, but there's an awful lot of things that we don't know with those statements. For instance, I work with women going through transitions in life. Her transition could be maybe having a first baby, it could be being diagnosed with a disease, it could be maybe losing a spouse, it could be losing parents, it could be going through menopause. There are a lot of things that factor into being a life transition, but each of those transitions requires a very specific message. If I'm a woman who's 38 and let's say I'm going through menopause 10 years early, what's happening to me is very different than a woman who is in her late 30s and having her first child. um, the way that you're going to talk to that woman is going to really need to tie into where she is and how can you relate to her and get her from where she wants to be. Maybe this woman going through early menopause really wanted to have another child, and so she's grieving the loss of that possibility. What does that mean? How can you help her? How can you bridge the gap? Maybe there is an option to do a surrogacy. Maybe there's an excuse me, an option for adoption. There's a lot of things that you could help walk her through to help her see other possibilities to be able to fulfill that goal that she had for the size of her family. Um, you know, excuse me, having kids and the age of your kids is going to really make a difference, the dynamics of your family. Do you have two sets of twins? Do you have stair steps? Do you have an only child? Do you have 12 kids? My mother-in-law was actually one of 27 kids. I cannot even imagine what that household would look like. But can you see how there's a difference in what their family dynamics is like, what their daily life is like? having to shuttle multiple children from one place to another. Maybe they're a homeschooling family. That's a whole different environment than if you're shuttling your kids to maybe 2 or 3 public schools. So you want to know what their family is like. You want to know what their income level is like. Do they have discretionary money? How much discretionary money do they need to have in order to afford your product or service? All of those things matter because it ties into the things that are important to them in their day-to-day life. Do they have discretionary money for travel, for live entertainment? Or is their idea of getting out and enjoying things as a family, maybe going out and camping or going for a hike? Versus going on a 5-star vacation and staying in a resort. So again, all of these things, as you're tying into demographics and psychographics, build into who she is, what's important to her, and what is driving her particular buying decisions. Who influences her? Does she have mentors? Who might those be? Is she a reader? Does she have a favorite author? Does she work with a coach? Maybe her mother is still her biggest hero, and her mother plays a lot into her influence and what she thinks and what she believes. So take this opportunity to really start jotting out some notes about what does her life look like? Is she busy in an urban area and she's the life of the city? Does she live a quiet and reserved life out in the suburbs? Does she live in a small town in the middle of Wyoming? All of those things matter because it builds into what her life is. It builds into what's going on inside of her head when she sees your product or service. So you really want to be able to structure your message and your products and services around the things that you know are going to meet her needs, that are going to be in alignment with what her goals and values are. So again, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, you want to know your avatar as well as you know your best friend. So let's look at some things that can help you really drill down these demographics and psychographics. Where does she hang out? Does she hang out at Starbucks? Does she take her laptop with her and enjoy a cup of coffee while she works? Does she hang out at the local pub and enjoy a microbrew? There's going to be a different crowd there. There's going to be a different feel for her vibe and what brings her energy. Who are her favorite authors? Does she like to read fiction? Does she like to read mystery? Or does she do self-help books? The things that she's interested in are going to play into the copy that you write. What publications does she read? Does she read news publications? Does she read glamour books? Does she like reading about real estate? Does she, like reading about cooking? What is it that drives her? Does she listen to podcasts? Is she a woman of faith? Does faith drive and filter her decisions? Is she a conference attender? Does she like to go in public to live events, or does she prefer virtual events that she can do on her own time? Does she volunteer? What causes are important to her? Does she donate to certain causes? Does she like live entertainment? Does she like to go to live sporting events? What kind of hobbies does she have? You can tell a lot by the hobbies that somebody has. Is she a horseback rider? Is she a ballroom dancer? Does she like to throw pottery? All of those things build into what's important to her, and you can start to see what triggers her to make a decision. What is it that fulfills her? What makes her soul really happy? And this is really an important one. Is she an introvert or an extrovert? This really can play into how you communicate to her. It has to do with how she spends her energy. I was working on a launch with one of my clients about 6 months ago, and she deals with introverts. And when we planned out her launch and her launch strategy, we did it like we would any other launch strategy with a typical 48-hour closed cart kind of messaging. Well, at 48 hours, she didn't close anything. And she was like totally panicked. She thought she had done such a great job, and she did. She thought her messaging was on point, and it was. But what we didn't take into consideration was they were introverts. They needed 48 hours just to process the idea. At 48 hours, they started sending text messages and emails saying, "Hey, I want to know more." She ended up having a very successful launch, but it all happened between 48 and 96 hours after cart was closed. And so it's really important to understand, how do your customers, your ideal customers, process? Do you need to build in more time for them to think and ponder? Or do they make quick split decisions? Your messaging needs to reflect that. You want to know also about their brands. Where do they shop? What's important to them? Do they have a life motto or a special quote? All of those things play a part into who they are and what makes them tick. So you want to spend as much time as you can. And of course, you can go way beyond this list that I've put together here. But the more data points that you know about them, the more specific and targeted your copy is going to be, and the more compelling your call to action is going to be. So let's talk again about the demographics, and the age and the income just are not enough. There's nothing emotional about a demographic that is going to connect you to your ideal client. That's all stats. It's all measured, right? She's a woman. She's 36. She's got a degree. She makes $150,000 a year. She's an attorney, right? Those are all just facts. They're finite, fixed points of data, but they're not going to connect you to her as a person. She's not going to feel compelled to follow you because you know that much information about her. So you really want to dig deeper so you feel that emotional connection with her. She wants to know that you know more than what her zip code or her phone number is. She wants to know that you know what she's thinking. You know how she's feeling. You know what motivates her to get up in the morning and put her pants on and go to the office, or, to her home office, whatever that is. You know her dreams, desires, and aspirations as well as she does. It's like sitting down and talking with a best friend. So I would
help you.
encourage you to be able to start with your psychographic data first, and then go back and fill in the demographic information. So really focus on her interests and desires and values and her goals, because those are what are going to make you stand apart in your copywriting from your competitors. So let's look at, hold on, I'm so sorry, we skipped a couple slides here. Let me go back. Oh, darn it, guys, I'm sorry.
All right, let me look at him and.
Okay, so challenges and pain points are what we're going to talk about next. So where does she struggle? What fears is she facing? And what's holding her back from getting from point A to point B? These are all really important points for you to be able to dial in on, because as we talk a little bit later, there are some very specific techniques that you can use in order to tie into what her struggles are and maybe fears that she's facing, where you can agitate it to make it a little bit more compelling for her to take action. So you want to really know every aspect of her life so she can feel seen, heard, and understood by you. Because the more she feels validated in her position, the more she's going to trust that you have a solution to her most pressing pain points. So when we look at copywriting, I mean, why do we do this? Most coaches spend 70% of their time writing copy and marketing their business. Well, we want to be able to build a bridge from where she is to where she wants to be. So if you think about this as she's standing at the Grand Canyon and she's on one side of the canyon and there's this vast crevasse between the other side and where she wants to be, your copywriting needs to build that bridge. You want to be that pathway to get her from point A to point B and make it believable to her that you can get her there. So I want you to think about the conversation that you would have with her in being able to build this bridge. So the first thing you want to be able to do is identify her pain point. What is that struggle that she has? Maybe it's a weight loss struggle. Maybe she just had a baby. She put on some extra pounds like all of us do, and she just can't take off that last 15 pounds. So let's agitate that pain. What's that going to look like? What does that mean if she can't take off that weight? Does that mean that she's just going to continue to put on more weight? Does it mean she's not going to have the energy to keep up with her young child? If she has multiple children, is that going to mean that, it's going to impact the rest of her family life and the energy she has to do all the things that she needs to do as a mom? What is your ideal solution? So you take her from the problem that she has, you show her how not taking action is only going to make the problem worse, and then you show her a solution, again, that is in alignment with her values and her goals to be able to compel her to take action. So you want to be able to help her not feel stuck anymore. Maybe there's a fear. Maybe there's a fear involved with her not taking off the rest of that weight. Maybe when she's at her normal weight, she gets unwanted attention from men. And so she holds on to that weight as a protection from that unwanted attention. So, how do you help her face that fear, get beyond that fear so she can live her best life, so she can be healthy and have the energy that she needs to be the best mom, spouse, sister, whatever it is that she's aspiring to be? So again, you want to keep all of this about her. What's going on in her life? What's her fear? What's her obstacle? Show her how bad it could be without taking action. Provide that solution for her. So there's also a second technique that you can use is you can speak to her desires, where you show the benefit of working with you and getting to be able to achieve her goal, to achieve her dream. So maybe again, it's weight loss. So what are the benefits? If she achieves that goal, she's going to fit in her clothes. She's going to feel more confident. She's going to have more energy. She's going to sleep better. She's not going to have acid reflux. Whatever those things are that you solve, you want to show her that her best life can happen. She can have all the things that she wants if she follows your particular um, method or service or product in order to get her there. So how can you bridge the gap from where she is to where she wants to be? You want to be able to communicate in emotional terms, using her words, using her phrase, and be able to meet her exactly where she is and know exactly where she wants to be. And you want to be confident in being able to walk her through those steps to get her there. You really want to lean into what's holding her back. You want to let her know that you understand. It's not her fault that she's there, but she can make a choice to move forward, right? Maybe she's tried all the things in dieting. Maybe she tried low carb. Maybe she tried doing intermittent fasting. Maybe none of those things worked for her. It wasn't for a lack of effort, right? But now you have this new thing that she could try. You're going to give her some hope by speaking to her desires and letting her know that that's what is possible for her. And that if she just takes these 3 simple steps, that dream or desire is within reach. So look beyond the surface of what that goal is or what's holding her back, because it's really what's below the surface that's going to allow you to compel her to take action. So you want to be able to elaborate on how she's going to achieve her goals by using your product or service. And in this stage, you don't want to just focus on the features of what it is that you sell, right? So maybe you're selling a car and it has air conditioning. Well, air conditioning is a feature, right? It's a beautiful thing to have. Maybe where she lives, it's not so important. Maybe she lives in northern Montana and it doesn't get above 60 degrees in the summertime, so she doesn't really need it. But maybe she wants to take a road trip and she's going to go through the southern states and drive through Death Valley. There's a benefit to having air conditioning in the car, right? So you're going to be able to talk about she's going to be more comfortable. You're going to be able to listen to music and have conversations because the windows aren't down. So you want to be able to build in what benefits your product or service offers her in achieving her goals as you move forward in your copywriting. So good copywriting is persuasive and conversational. You want to have a conversation through your copy with her. You want to engage her so she wants to respond on your social posts. You want her to respond by taking action on your on your sales pages. You want her to respond to your emails in your nurturing series. And so you want to be as conversational as you can be. You don't want to use big words. You want to use the words that she uses. I know sometimes it seems really crazy to dummy things down, but you want to talk to her like you would with your friend. You don't want to give big jargon. You don't want to use techie terms. You just want to use regular everyday language. So let's talk about objections and roles. And this is really important because you want to be able to identify what her role is in the decision making process before you get to a sales call. And you want to know what things might be objections so you can deal with it before it becomes a deal breaker. So you want to ask yourself questions like what would prevent your avatar from purchasing your product or service? What matters most to her? Is it price? Is it time frame? Does she have to have a prerequisite to be able to work with you? What kind of return on investment can she expect? Does she have a boss that she needs to get approval from? Is she in partnership with someone and they need to make a decision together? Does she have to consult her spouse before she makes a purchase? So, the more you can understand about the obstacles that are going to prevent her from saying yes, the better you can tailor your messaging to address and overcome the objections before they ever enter into your conversation. So, I had one client recently who the husband was the breadwinner, and so he had the final say in all financial decisions. And so she needed to be able to make a case to him as the decision maker on why working with a coach was going to help her get further in her business. And she kind of coached me even. She's like, this is what he needs to hear from you to say yes to me. And so we kind of powwowed in order to have that conversation and bring him in, let him fulfill his role of being the head of the family and making that final decision. But it also gave her the opportunity to feel empowered to know the steps that she needed to take to be able to get the yes that she wanted. So it wasn't a money objection. There was never a price involved in the decision. It was always that he had to be the one to say yes. That was their agreement. So understanding the dynamics of how they make decisions to say yes to your product or service will lead you down the path of how you need to frame your copywriting. So let's look at some possible objections. How long will it take to get an ROI? There's a lot of people out there who have spent a lot of money on coaching programs and funnels and you name it, and they didn't make any money. And so that might be a question that you need to be able to answer for them. um, they might have a concern that, hey, that works for everyone else, but maybe it won't work for me. I've tried every weight loss thing under the sun and nothing works. So this might not work for me. How can you overcome that objection? I don't have enough time to commit right now is another one that you might hear. So how can your product or service work within their existing dynamics? That's why it's so important for you to know, what does their family life look like? What does their day-to-day like life look like? You know, does she spend an hour and a half commuting each way to work? I had a coaching client who I didn't end up working with, who told me that we would have to have our coaching calls while she was on her commute. Well, I knew right away that that wasn't going to be successful because there was no way she could concentrate on our calls. She was going to need to pay attention to the traffic that she was in on on a California highway. And so you need to listen to those things. If she doesn't have time, why doesn't she have time? How can what you have work into it? These also can be really great things for you to exclude who is not your ideal customer, because maybe they do need to have a particular amount of time free in order to work your program to get the results that they need. Um, and so don't always look at your copywriting as only communicating with your ideal avatar, but also of ways of excluding those who are not your ideal person. So be really clear when it comes to looking at what it takes to work with you, that you're weeding out and not just taking anybody because they're willing to pay you to work with you. You want to make sure that you're working with the right people so they get the right results. So let's look at possible roles that they could play in having the buying decision. Maybe they're the sole decision maker. They're not worried about the price tag as long as they know that they're going to get their money back, that they're going to be able to make money out of that investment. Um, Maybe somebody is selling ads, they're a Facebook ad seller, and the person says, hey, I've done ads before, never converted any of them, not sure this is going to work. You want to be able to explain why your system is going to give them a better result and how you're going to help them convert those paid ads into paying customers. Maybe her spouse, like I shared an example of, has the final say. You want to be able to equip her to be able to give him the information that he needs to be able to understand why this investment is going to pay off for them. you know, and it may not be a money payoff. It may be a confidence payoff. It might be feeling more healthy. But you need to know, again, from the psychographics, what's important and what that benefit is going to mean for her to take action forward to work with you. And maybe she works in a corporate environment. Maybe she has to have some kind of cost benefit analysis that goes to her boss before he'll release budget to be able to pay for that. If you're a coach or a consultant, many companies now are paying for people to invest in coaching because they see the benefit of their performance going up. And so, maybe you just need to be able to help them put together the framework to take to the actual decision maker. And again, it could be a business partnership that is going on that they need to work together with to come to a consensus. So let's talk a little bit about tying your product or service into the things that people want at their core. So when you're looking at objections, you really need to know the issues that are facing them. So what is potentially holding them back, or what is it that they really want? So a fear of failure is a huge thing that holds people back. Um, A fear of taking a loss, a financial loss could hold them back. A fear of making mistakes. I had one client a couple years back. She had a fear of abandonment. She believed that if she made the money that she wanted to make, that her friends and family would abandon her because they were all poor. They were farmers, they just lived, from harvest to harvest, and that was what she grew up in. And she felt like if she went above and beyond that, that they wouldn't have anything in common anymore, and that she would lose connection with the people that were the most valuable to her. And so there were a lot of things that she did to self-sabotage to not be able to move forward. So she had that comfort of um, her family circle. So you really want to know, what is it that's preventing them from moving forward, whether it's, real or perceived. What is that fear? How can you help them get beyond that as you're looking at possible objections? What is it that they really desire? Is it time or location or financial freedom? How can your product or service help them achieve that? That could be very enticing, especially when you're looking at the benefit style of writing. you know, what are they longing for? How do they find fulfillment? What defines success for them? What's going to help them sleep at night? What's going to remove their worry or anxiety? You know, how can your product or service help them increase their self-love, their love for family, community, serving others, whatever's important for them in that realm? How can you help them avoid things that they don't want in their life? Inequities, injustices that happen. Maybe being poor. They really hate being poor and they really want to be able to hit their first six figures. How would that change their life? How would that change their family? So great copywriting addresses objections before they become deal breakers. So the more you can cover on the front end before you get to that sales call, the easier it's going to be to help them say yes. I like to call this removing the friction from the buying decision. You want to take away all the barriers and obstacles that you possibly can. And the only way you can do that is by being very intimate with the psychographic data that, creates their life and their livelihood. So let's talk about buying motivations. Everybody buys for a particular reason, and maybe one or two are important to them. So do they want to make or save money? Do they want to stop doing things and save time? Do they want to have more status or love? These are the most compelling reasons that people buy. So when you can discover what motivates your avatar to make a purchase, you're able then to create your content to speak into what that desire is. And when you add this to the rest of the information that you know about your avatar, your messaging can be so much more targeted. So if you can help them achieve their number one motivator, they're going to say yes. It's really just that easy. So let's talk about the 10 reasons why people buy. The number one motivator is your product or service is going to help them make money. Most people want to be able to make money right away. It gets them an ROI and then it builds into their profit. So they're very dollar and cents motivated. You need to be able to demonstrate how your product or service is going to help them with that objective, sorry. And you might be using terms like in just 7 days, in 30 days, and let them know, here's the time frame. You can make money by using this product or service. Bam, you're going to have their attention. It might be saving money. It might be preparing for the future. That is really the compelling thing. If you are selling some kind of financial services. It might be setting up a college fund. It might be saving for retirement. It might be saving for a big family vacation. So again, going back to the psychographics, you want to know what's motivating them. What are their core values? What is compelling them every day? What are they working towards? It might be avoiding effort, you know? Maybe it has to do with marketing. You know, hey, I can help you generate pre-qualified leads so you don't have to spend 70% of your time marketing your business. You can 3 times your close rate with these highly qualified leads, which will allow you to spend more time working with actual clients, which will allow you to have more time to spend with your family, which will allow you to have more time to take vacations. Whatever it is that is their motivator, you want to be able to show them how you can give them that benefit or result. How to escape physical or emotional pain. Some women build their business around serving people who live in chronic pain. So, how can you help them have a better quality of life? Maybe it's somebody who's been unemployed. Maybe they have had a lot of financial stress. How are you going to help them, not have day to day anxiety? How are you going to be able to help them meet that need so they have peace of mind, so they rest better, they feel better, they look better, right? How can your product or service get them more comfort? Whatever that means for them, where they're more comfortable in their life. Does that mean having a nest egg that is going to make them feel more comfortable? Does it have to do with being comfortable with the skin they're in? You want to be able to identify that for your ideal avatar. How to help them achieve greater cleanliness, hygiene, or health. Health is a really big thing right now. How are you going to help them live a more healthy lifestyle? Um, Again, this could tie in with avoiding effort. Maybe they really need to lose weight. They don't dig exercising. You can help them through a diet plan, through a meal plan that's more healthy and cuts out carbs and fats and sugars, in order to avoid having to go to the gym and working out 5 days a week. Maybe they only need to do it 2 days a week. How can you demonstrate that to them? Maybe their love language is all about words of affirmation. So, how can you help them gain praise through your particular product or service? Maybe again, maybe it's losing weight after having a baby. Being able to hear, man, you look good. I don't know how you lost that weight. That can really fuel somebody's confidence, which allows them to perform better in other areas of their life. Again, feeling more loved, feeling more acceptance, feeling like they have a sense of belonging. How are you going to help them do that? Maybe you are teaching them how to have boundaries, how to advocate for themselves so they're not walked over, like a welcome mat, right? How can you help them have more popularity or status? Maybe status is really important. Maybe driving that BMW or having a boat or having a vacation house is really important. How can you help them gain that level of status through your product or service? And so once you know, again, from the psychographics, what is motivating them, what is the most important thing in the world to them, you're going to be able to tailor your messaging to be able to be right on target with where they're at. So these are questions that you could ask about your product or service to help you have some ideas on where to go with your copywriting. So one question could be, what are the 5 ways my product or service can help my ideal customer make money or save money? How can you do that? And I would even encourage you to go beyond 5. Don't look at just the quickest, simplest, easy ways, because they've probably already heard that. So if you can look at 6 to 10 of these answers, you're going to get at something that's really going to be at the heart of where she's at. How much time will your product or service save her that would allow her to do other things? Where is she spending her time that it feels like an energy suck? And where does she want to spend her time? How can you help her make that trade off? What could she give up doing totally if she bought your product or service? You know, maybe you're selling meal plans. She doesn't have to go to the grocery store. She doesn't have to plan out a menu. She's going to save all this time in not having to do those activities, and dinners show up in a box that's ready to cook, you know, every week, and she's all set. And now she can do these other things that are important to her. What physical or emotional pain does your product or service reduce or eliminate? So, when it comes to fears, you can't usually 100% get rid of a fear, but you can reduce it. And so, you want to be really clear about getting over that fear or that obstacle. What does life look like on the other side? How does your product do that? Is it a process? Is it just a done for you product? What does that look like and how does it benefit her? And then, again, going back to the status and acceptance, how does your product help her with that objective? What does that look like for her? And again, I would look at more than just 5 ways, because those are usually the quick and easy ways off the top of your head. And someone else has probably already communicated that. So the goal of good marketing is to persuade your potential client to answer your call to action. Whether you're trying to get them on a call, to go to a webinar, a master class, to attend a week-long training, or to buy a physical product, your goal is to walk them through that process so they say yes to your call to action. So let's talk about some bonus material. You want to connect to her why. Her why is what it is all about. So in the very beginning, you might go through some trial and error to see what really works. But once you figure out what's working for her, it's going to be the recipe for success for you. So don't think about writing as writing, because sometimes you can just sit down and look at that empty page and not have any ideas at all what to say, how to fill that space. Think about it as a construction project. Think about it as building a building from the ground up. You want to use all of the different elements that we've talked about today in order to write compelling copy to get her to take your desired action. So you want to use the language that she uses. You want to put in the time to research the keywords that are going to make your copy resonate with her. And this is going to really help you not to come off as feeling pushy or sounding salesy to her. You're going to help her connect with you and see you as that expert that can actually help her solve this problem. So, why does it matter to her? Why is what you're selling or offering going to matter to her? How is it going to change her life? What are the benefits that she's going to receive? What's the transformation? Why is that, excuse me, important to her? Why is it a big deal? Again, we go right back to the psychographics. You need to know what her day-to-day life looks like. You need to know what her core values are and the filters that she's using to make her decisions. So when you're looking at features, which all might be fine and dandy, those are boring bullet points and they're going to be totally looked over. So you want to be able to talk about the benefits and tie into that emotional part of her where she's going to say, yes, I understand that. Yes, I get that. And writing bullet points could be a whole masterclass on its own, but you can use this simple little formula to be able to buy into her emotion. And that's it will blank so you can blank, which means blank. And it's a very simple way for you to interject that into your copywriting without having to write pages or paragraphs. It can be just a long sentence. So here's an example. Curated audiences put you in front of a pre-qualified audience so you can convert five times more leads into paying customers, which means you can stop spending 70% of your time writing content and trolling in Facebook groups to find customers. So if not doing something, if saving time is a trigger, this would speak right to them. Oh my gosh, I can do more in less time, right? And so you want to be able to use this phrase in your emails. You can use it in your Facebook posts. You can use it in your video sales letters, right? To be able to draw them in right away and let them know how you can help. So another bonus is when you're going in and writing your um, content, you want to be able to do something that's called future casting. And that is just an NLP technique that helps you use language to get people to see what is possible for them. And the formula for that is before, after, and the bridge. So you begin by talking about what their life is like now. What is their struggle? What is making them unhappy? What's making them feel stuck? And then ask them to imagine with you. You might even ask them to close their eyes and imagine. And then you paint the picture about what their life is like when that negative thing has been removed or been reduced or eliminated, right? And then finally, you build that bridge from the one side of the Grand Canyon over to the other. And you let them know that great news, I've got an answer, I've got a solution. This is what you need to do. Whether you have a product, a service, a method, you can spell that out for them. So, do you want to get really good at copywriting? I think because you're here today, the answer to that is yes. And so, like with anything, writing is a muscle that you just have to use and you have to practice. We can all be great copywriters. We just have to sit down and do it. So, one of the things that happens to me, and I'm sure that it happens to all of you too, is to be able to um, always be on when you need to be on, to always have these creative ideas. That doesn't always happen for me. I have to be in the mood. I have to have the creativity and the motivation to be able to sit down and write. So one of the tricks that I have developed is I keep an electronic folder of copywriting that I like. If I've seen a post or an ad or an email that made me stop and read it, I stick it in my folder so I can go back and I can analyze it. I can look at what was good, what I didn't like about it, and it will give me ideas for ways that I can use that style of writing and turn it into my own. You might even want to write lots of headlines and have a headline folder. So when you're running your ads or you're creating subject lines for your nurturing emails, you have a go-to place where you already have some ideas, because once you start looking at those ideas, your brain is going to key into those patterns and it's going to help you revive your creativity and be able to come up with more content. And, be sure that you incorporate all of the tips and tricks and formulas that we talked about today. The more you grow your confidence, the more writing you're going to want to do. And so, like with anything, motivation doesn't just happen. You have to take an action to build that motivation and that momentum. You might even want to start building a file that has different bullet points about the benefits. If you have more than one avatar that you serve, you're going to want to have headlines and bullet points separately for each of those avatars. So then when you're making a sales letter, when you're making a live training or a video, you're going to be able to go in and pull those headlines, pull those bullet points, know what those benefits are, and be able to save a lot of time and energy in creating all of that. So good content is written from one person to another. So you might sell to hundreds of people, but you're going to sell to them one person at a time. So when you're writing your content, think about writing to that one person, that ideal avatar that you have taken time to be able to identify and refine who they are. And then you're going to be able to persuade that one person to take action. Like I said, you might sell to hundreds every year, but you're going to convert them one person at a time. So be really cognizant that you're not writing to a group. So this is what we covered today. We talked about goals and values and how those are the driving force between your avatar and your content. You want to make sure that you're in alignment with their goals and their values. We talked about the importance of demographics and psychographics, and how psychographics are what give you the emotional tools to be able to write compelling copy. We talked about their challenges and their pain points, and how you can go in and you can help agitate those in order to show them the benefits of how working with you is going to eliminate those. We've talked about their possible objections and the roles that they play in the decision-making process, and how you can use your copywriting in order to overcome those before they become a deal breaker. And most importantly, we talked about the 10 buying motivators and how we are all motivated by at least one of those 10. And if we really understand what that motivator is for our ideal avatar, we're able to tailor our copy to be more compelling to get them to say yes. So at the end of the day, it's all about removing friction from the buying process. We're walking them down a path. We're showing them a better way. We are letting everything that we know about them flow into our content. So the more specific and targeted we are, the better results we're going to get. The more they are going to feel seen, heard, and understood, which is going to build that trust factor. They're going to say, I know her. She knows me. I know that she can get me to where I want to be. I was having a discovery call with a client just before I hopped on this masterclass today. And this woman works with attorneys, and she said, I don't even have to look for my people. People come to me from my posts and they say, you get it. You know my struggle. I want to work with you. And that's what good copywriting does. It builds that connection. It lets them see that you know exactly who they are. And so you're going to be able to help them eliminate what their most pressing problem or obstacle is. And you're going to keep them from feeling inadequate, incapable, or insecure, and help them to feel empowered and confident and be able to take on the world by working with you. So these are some important tips to keep in mind. One, the more you know about your avatar, the more targeted your message can be. Two, and I think this is the biggest takeaway in this list, everyone is not your ideal avatar. You were designed to work with a specific group of people. Focus on working with who that ideal person is. You're going to get better results. You're going to have better testimonies. You're going to be able to grow and scale your business more quickly by working with your specialized, unique niche and not trying to be all things to all people. Three, if you serve more than one avatar, you need to tailor your content for each person in your audience. At the beginning of the masterclass today, I shared that one of my clients works with women in transition. Can she help women in all of those different stages of life that I spoke about? Absolutely. But she's not going to get anyone if she's trying to capture them all with one set of copy. So you need to make sure that your avatar is in alignment with each of the people that you serve, and you need to be segmenting your list in order to communicate to them in their keywords with their emotional triggers and with their buying motivators. 4, copywriting helps you narrow down your audience by excluding those who are not your avatar. Sometimes that feels really counterintuitive to say, I want to scale down, I want to exclude people, but that's one of the best decisions that you can make for growing your business. Because when you're talking to the right people, you're going to convert them more easily and with a whole lot of less effort. 5, your headline should draw your avatar in. You want to be able to have great headlines when you're doing an ad, when you're writing your newsletter, when you're creating a subject line. You want to be very compelling. You want it to be friendly. You want them to stop and read. Your bullet points should build curiosity about your product or service. So whether you're writing an email or you're doing a long Facebook post or you are doing a sales letter, you want to build curiosity. You want them to get to the next section of your sales page or the next section of your email in order to see what that call to action is. So make sure that you are moving them through the whole process with your copy. Great copywriting speaks to just one person, not a group of people. You're never going to sell anybody who feels confused. If you're talking to a group of people, there's going to be mixed messages. So make sure that you're writing just for that ideal avatar. Make it feel personal and intimate. And number 8, your goal is to make your avatar feel seen, heard, and understood so that they trust you to solve their most pressing problem. And so, again, using the words that are familiar and comfortable to them will help build that rapport much more quickly. So, what are next steps? Next, the next masterclass that I'm going to lead is going to be on Thursday, the 28th, and we're going to talk about how using a curated audience can deliver you a successful launch. One of the biggest reasons I see launches fail is that people do not have an audience to sell to. And when you're looking at filling a conversion event, you need to have like 10 times as many people registered as you need to actually be in attendance because the attendance rate is so much lower than the registration rate. And so we'll talk about how you'll be able to do that. And so part of what we're going to talk about in that masterclass are the 3 legs of success: having the right audience, the right message, and the right offer. You need all 3 of those to be able to create a successful launch. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that on the 28th. So this masterclass is for you if you're tired of getting mediocre results, if you're ready to create a highly defined avatar, if you're ready to refine your message so you're speaking directly to your avatar, and if you're ready to have a successful launch. This masterclass is not for you if you want to continue spending 70% of your time marketing to the wrong people, if you want to spend endless hours mining for potential leads in Facebook groups and direct messaging, if you want to let the algorithm choose who should see your paid ads, or if you don't want to get an ROI on your marketing and advertising efforts. So if you need to convert more leads into paying customers right now, you can schedule a free 30-minute avatar audit call with me today. This is a laser focused call where we will help you pinpoint the disconnect between your messaging and your avatar. This is not a sales call. This is straight strategy to go through and look at where you're at with your avatar and your messaging to be able to help you get back on point. So feel free to schedule a call. Our link is on the bottom of the screen here, and you can always feel free to reach out to me on social media if you didn't have a chance to grab it today. And I just want to thank you all for joining us today. I hope that we brought value to you and that you're going to be able to help connecting in a more impactful way with your audience through your copywriting. And as always, feel free to visit us at our website at audientum.com. We have some great blogs up there to help you with business building and audience building techniques and strategies. So thanks again for being here, and I will see you guys next time.